Hello everyone, this is Darius from the Shotcaller, and today we're gonna talk about the huge news, the leaks, per sources, articles from Jacob Wolf about the fact that apparently, according to sources, 5 teams won't be returning to the EU LCS in 2019, including Unicorns of Love, Splice, H2K, Giants, and Rockhat. And that kind of sucks, honestly, because I'm worried that, some of the players, I won't be able to see them again. Some of the people that I've been working with over the past few years, I won't see them again. That kind of sucks by itself, even though it is a huge new step for the league, of course. But overall, I want to make this video talking about what this means to me as an esports fan, the fact that the Unicorns of Love specifically haven't made it. Of course, you've probably already seen the title. I think that this is the biggest loss to franchising we've seen in both EU and NA included. And I'm wearing this jersey on purpose. I was a really huge Immortals fan, and then them not making it into the NALCS franchising system really sucked. Honestly, I was really sad about that, and I'm still unhappy about that decision, even though I'm sure that Riot had their reasons to do that. But I still think that Unicorns not making it into the EU LCS partnership system, hello there, quick shot, is actually the bigger loss. And please let me explain why that is. So first of all, I think that the Unicorns of Love, in my personal view, were the perfect esports team. What that means is that they were a group of friends that just came together, played their best game, and grew into a really, really good competitive team, which is, the American dream esports version, just playing with your friends and eventually becoming so good at it that you can compete on the highest level. Now, Unicorns of Love, of course, never made it to Worlds. They were so close multiple times, but they were still a super competitive team, if you go by that. They've been in 2 spring split, in 2 finals, I believe, of the EU LCS, and in general they made every playoffs except in 2018. I know some people will go, oh, but they were super bad in 2018, and that's true, but please, 3 years of competitive success shouldn't be ignored by 1 year of competitive suckiness, I guess, because 2018 was, of course, really bad for them in terms of competitive success. But throughout all the other years, they always made playoffs. They were always a strong contender in regional qualifiers for Worlds. They were in multiple finals, and they were a competitive team. They were also a great org when it came to developing talents. A lot of the players we know and love in the ULCS, like Power of Evil, well, he's in A now, but Gilius, he might return next year, okay? But Chachi, Hili-sang, now playing for Fnatic, of course. Xerxes was voted Rookie of the Split in 2017, spring that is, which was really competitive split, because, that was the split that Caps came in. That was the split that Broxa was subbed in. So it was actually a huge competition for Rookie of the Split, and Xerxes still got it, and he's now with Splice, and I guess in the future with a different team, I would hope at least. I think he's a great jungler, even though he didn't have the best split, but that's besides the point. Unicorns of Love have always developed great talent, and I also always felt like they were consistently able to get the best out of their players. For example, someone like Samux he is of the old guard. He used to play top lane for Giants like ages ago. But after that, he was kind of, And then when he played for Unicorns and played ADC, he was all of a sudden a really, really good ADC. People like to forget that. But in summer 2017, Samux was like at least top 4, if not top 3 ADCs in the league from a purely individual performance. Exile has had his good and bad splits, of course. But they've consistently developed talent, and I think that's something to note here, while also staying competitive, because Rockhat was always viewed as this talent factory for good reason, but Rockhat at the same time also were never that big of a competitive org, realistically speaking. They always kind of finished pretty low, and Unicorns were both a talent factory and a competitive org. So I think that should be recognized. But besides the fact that they are like the esports American dream team, the fact that they consistently develop talent, that they were consistently competitive, except for this year, I also think that the Unicorns of Love were probably in the top 3 of EU LCS teams when it came to developing a fan base. This is something that maybe not everyone agrees with, and it's especially interesting to talk to journalists and content creators that don't regularly attend the EU LCS. But as someone who's now literally spent his time, or who was present at every single day of EU LCS for the past 2 years, for the past 2 seasons, I was there literally every single day, including all of playoffs and play-ins and relegations, yada yada. Actually not relegations, because you don't get interviews then, so I wasn't there. But yeah, you get the gist. I was pretty much there 99% of the time. The Unicorns of Love actually have a fan club consisting of a few hundred people, and they actually managed to get 20 odd people to the EU LCS every week. So every time you attended EU LCS live in the studio in Berlin, you would find 24 Unicorns of Love fans. Sometimes all of them wear jerseys, sometimes only a few of them. And they even like introduced this year a couple of things, like they all showed up in pool party clothing, or in suits, or all in pajamas, or some of them in cosplay. And like some of those cosplays were amazing. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend. I'll put a link in the description to a cosplayer who did a Unicorns of Love Thresh. It's the most amazing cosplay, honestly. It's probably the best one I've seen at EU LCS to date. And to see that kind of fan support, I have not seen from any other org, including Fnatic and G2, for example. Yes, you see the occasional person in a Fnatic jersey and cheering for the team, of course, or in the G2 jersey and that kind of stuff. But I do have to wonder how many G2 or Fnatic fans, for example, support the team partially due to the success of the team, you know? Whereas Unicorns of Love, those people that were there, or that are part of the fan club and are there every week, they supported their team through thick and thin. They were there every week. They cheered on the team every week. They did, autograph sessions and photo sessions every time after every game. And also, on that note, Unicorns of Love also always did that. Even when they lost, they gave autographs, they took pictures with fans, they, chatted with them and all that kind of stuff, which is really uncommon still in the EU LCS and in esports in general, quite frankly, which kind of sucks, because I think, given that we still have such low live attendance when it comes to regular matches, it's really important that those that do attend live should be, praised a bit extra and get that kind of extra experience by being able to get an autograph and get a picture and that kind of stuff. If I don't know, like any other org essentially loses, the players are straight up down the line, down to the backstage area, get into the car and go back to the gaming house, and that's it. The only other time that I can recall in my 2 years of EU LCS, where there was a fan base as dedicated as the Unicorns fans at the EU LCS, was when Vitality played against Schalke in the playoffs in the summer. I believe 24 Vitality Ultras came in from France and were super loud and super energetic and supported the team through thick and thin. And even though Vitality lost, they still took a bunch of pictures, and the owner was there and he gave a great speech and all that kind of stuff. Amazing stuff. Great shout out to Vitality. Good job there. I highly applaud that as well. But Unicorns of Love did that throughout the entire split, throughout the entire year, no matter how much they lost and that kind of jazz. And I think that's like that was absolutely one of a kind performance, a one of a kind action that you only saw from that kind of team. And I really think that should have been valued. I'm sure that Riot to an extent valued that, but it's clearly they didn't value it enough, which I find really unfortunate, because again, Unicorns of Love, when it came to building a fan base, was really, really highly up there. And given the fact that Riot openly said, hey, we want teams in 2009, or we want to partner with teams that are able to build a dedicated fan base from a certain region, maybe even perhaps. Unicorns of Love, in my opinion, did the best job out of all the EU LCS teams at doing that. At least when it came to live attendance, but also when it came to like support on social media and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, hearing that they didn't make it in that regard is really weird and really unfortunate to me. I honestly can't really imagine going to the EU LCS now and not seeing, those 20 Unicorns of Love fans there. That's going to be really weird, honestly. Yeah, it's maybe even going to be a lot more silent. And I think that's a bit unfortunate. And that brings me to the last point why I think that the whole decision kind of sucks, is because, and it kind of ties in with my first point of Unicorns of Love being the esports American dream. It's the fact that Unicorns of Love were not 100% professional. And I know we're entering an age of esports where everything is super professional and players are making hundreds of thousands of euros. And that's great, that's cool. Big sponsorships, PaySafe, Player of the Series, and MasterCard Replay, brought to you by Acer Predator, all the memes on Reddit, I love them. But in all seriousness, that's great. It's honestly amazing, because it means that, hey, we're slowly but steadily getting to a point where esports might be profitable, and that's, of course, where we need to go eventually. Also, that's a point that I'll mention in a second, that Unicorns did really well. But Unicorns were unprofessional in a very positive and entertaining way. Even without Roma, but of course especially with Roma, their former manager that was often half naked on stage, doing all sorts of shenanigans, wearing costumes and all that kind of stuff. We all miss you, Roma. Please come back to EU, please. But in all seriousness, they tried out a lot of things. They broke a lot of barriers or norms that should have been broken to an extent as well, because I don't want esports to be just an exact replica of traditional sports. That's not what I want. I want esports to be able to include players trash talking each other, or occasionally swearing maybe, or just like having a lot of banter on Twitter, or posting really dumb memes, because to me that's what esports is, and I fear that this is slowly going away. With everything being super professional and that kind of stuff. I remember having a weird discussion with Chinese fans of I don't know which team, maybe EDG or something, and they were heavily offended at the idea that I was doing a regional qualifier for Worlds 2017, I think. And the idea that Unicorns with Romain as a manager, half naked on stage and stuff, would go to Worlds and embarrass the Chinese teams and stuff was so, oh no, you can't do that to them. And I was like, what? How isn't that amazing? How isn't that funny and unique and exciting? And that also ties in, even if you don't like what the Unicorns did over the years with their, flamboyant and the weird Billy Boy condom advertisements on Twitter now, even if you don't like all of this extravagant stuff, at least you have an opinion on Unicorns of Love, I don't know how many people have a strong opinion on, let's say, Giants Gaming, for example. Besides not seeing any Giants fans at the EU LCS barely ever, I think, sadly. There were a lot of in Spain, of course, but not at the regular days. I feel like there were quite a few teams in the EU LCS that just were kind of bland in terms of brand and that kind of stuff, and that were completely player-driven, which isn't good. I've talked about this before. We need team brands to really step up and set their foot down and say, hey, we are a team brand and that kind of stuff in order to acquire sponsorships and that kind of stuff. And Unicorns, again, did that. There were a lot of teams that didn't. And I find the decision-making weird in that area, because they were sound in that. People had an opinion on the Unicorns of Love. Be it positive or negative, you still had an opinion. And that's what a good brand is. That's, at the end of the day, what G2 aspired for to be for a very long time as well. You either love us or you hate us. If you love us, you're with us. If you hate us, fuck off. You know, we're gonna beat you. What team do you support? We're gonna beat it. You know, we are the bad guys and that kind of stuff. And that's, again, great brand. I love it. G2, cool brand. Carlos, really cool guy. But again, I think Unicorns also, to an extent, were able to achieve this kind of branding, and I think that was great. Also, Unicorns of Love were financially stable and sound. As you can probably tell, there were quite a few EU LCS teams that were running on investor money and were consistently burning high amounts of money. We're talking like 6 digits a year and that kind of stuff. And that's not good. That's gonna blow up in our faces sooner rather than later if this continues. And Unicorns of Love were always consistently just trying to make, break even, as you say in finance. And of course, that was part of, I would say, part of why they weren't as competitive this split, because they weren't able to compete with, all these new salaries coming in. And you do have to wonder whether this could potentially explode and the bubble could pop and stuff. And then Unicorns will go, well, we said this multiple times. We tried to just break even, and we realized, hey, if you break even at this point, you can't be the best team in Europe anymore because you can't pay those salaries anymore. And that's a bad thing, Maybe they'll be proven right, maybe they'll be proven wrong, and all the other teams that were burning money did the right decision. Future is gonna tell that. But also an area where the Unicorns of Love did a good job, and other teams didn't, even though most of the teams that didn't get accepted. So I guess that's bit of a redundant point, but still, it should be highlighted that Unicorns did a good job at that as well. So the only reason I can imagine for them not getting accepted was that they didn't have the funding and stuff, or they weren't willing to give up a majority of the team in order to get that kind of funding, which, I think is really unfortunate. Sucks. And all of these reasons, it's a weird feeling, because while Immortals, to draw it back to this, Immortals were a great team. They were competitive, and they had a cool brand, a good social media guy that was eventually fired, of course. But I have the feeling that if Immortals wouldn't have been as competitive as they were, and wouldn't have had such a great team right from the get-go, and compete on the highest of levels, I don't know whether I would have been an Immortals fan. But I always felt drawn to the Unicorns of Love, given their unique brand, given their unique social media posts, interaction with fans and all that kind of stuff. I always felt like they got so much right, and to see them not being rewarded for that by being able to compete in the 2019 EU LCS really sucks. And you can tell to an extent that others think that way as well. For example, when Frostcorin was announced for EU LCS, great edition, by the way, I'm so hyped for that. She also said, hey, I'm really looking forward to, working with those guys from Fnatic and G2 and Unicorns, because they have such great brands and stuff. And it's that's not gonna happen. That's a bit weird. All of that leaves a pretty sour taste in my mouth. And I hope to see the Unicorns in a regional league. Quite frankly, I don't think regional leagues in Europe will be all that relevant within the next 2 years, with the exception of Spain, of course, for disclosure. But German league is a tough topic to talk about, and so are most of the other leagues. Millennium dropping out of the French one and stuff. Difficult times. So that all of that kind of sucked. I feel like I shouldn't have just stopped. I should have just stopped at they did so much right, and now they're not getting the reward. But hey, sometimes you miss your cue. That's what I do sometimes as well. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any more questions or suggestions or comments on this topic, feel free to let me know. As per usual, thank you very much for watching. Make sure to subscribe. Tell your friends. Share this around. Flame me, I guess, if I'm really that wrong. And I'll make more videos on, the EU LCS partnership system, my opinions on them and stuff like that. More of that on the future. Now I'm getting ready for Korea. We'll be flying there in a few days, and I'll see you guys there. Bye-bye.